This morning, negotiations continue on the coronavirus relief bill after hours of talks yesterday produced very little progress. Unemployment benefits, liability protection for businesses, and relief for state and local governments have been major sticking points. Well, guess what? They're practically the whole major thing. What we need is bipartisanship. And right now, we're going to talk about some. Two senators are pushing a bill to help small businesses while sidestepping negotiations for the larger package. It is called the Restart Act, and it would allow businesses to stay afloat during the pandemic by extending loans from the Paycheck Protection Program and do a whole lot more. I want to bring in the lawmakers from both sides of the aisle who wrote this very bill: Democratic Senator Michael Bennet of Colorado and Republican Senator Todd Young of Indiana. Welcome to you both. Senator Bennet, I want you to talk about the bill and how specifically it's going to keep small businesses open, because right now we are on a path that a year from now we're only going to have chain restaurants and big box stores.
Stephanie, thanks so much for having the two of us. You're absolutely right about that. If we don't do something, we're going to lose hundreds of thousands of small businesses that are the key to us, to our economy, but also to who we are as a culture. And I think Todd and I think it's important that we not do that. So what we proposed is that for the companies that are hardest hit in this pandemic, that have seen the largest revenue decline, they ought to have loans available to them that are backed by the federal government, that allow them to pay for their working capital over the last 6 months of this year, pay back those loans over a 7-month period, but be to the extent that they use those loans to pay for debt, to pay their rent, to pay for payroll and benefits, that ultimately those loans be forgivable. And it's a reflection of the reality that the first program, the PPP program, was a good and useful start, but it's not going to bridge small business into the other side of this pandemic. And that's what Senator Young and I are trying to do.
Everything that you're laying out, or that Senator Bennet has laid out, Senator Young, makes perfect sense. And much of it was missed in PPP. So are you willing to accept the over $600 billion that has already been given out, and accept that a lot of those businesses weren't hurting and didn't need the money, but no big deal, they got it, we'll just let it roll?
Yeah, I think I'm actually very proud about how Republicans and Democrats came together and were able to put together the first Paycheck Protection Program. I think we saved 50 million jobs over the course of that. But at the time, you and others will recall, we weren't sure how long it would take to navigate this virus or to overcome this. Clearly, we're now at a point where it's pretty obvious that this virus is going to be around for a while, and these businesses are going to need additional assistance if they're to survive. So we think a longer term program, 6 months or more of additional assistance of long-term working capital, is appropriate, so that we can make sure that, as you say, Stephanie, we don't emerge from this with just chain stores and big box stores. Instead, our local restaurants, our veterans organizations, our manufacturing operations, the pillars of our local communities need to survive. And our objective here is to make sure that they do. And on the back end of this virus, that all these hardworking Americans have a place to go back to work.
Assuming your bill passes, Senator Young, how quickly would business owners get the money? One of the issues with PPP, there was a lot of the language you talk about originally designed to be in it. For example, businesses would have had to prove that their revenue was down 25 to 50% from where it was last year. That language was removed to get the money out faster. So unfortunately, a lot of very healthy businesses got the money because they wanted to get it out quickly. Let's say yours goes through. When can those businesses get this cash?
Well, our proposed legislation here, the Restart Act, will stand up the program within 2 weeks, 15 days. It must be stood up. And in speaking with local financial institutions back home in Indiana, they've indicated that they would welcome this program. They think that in fairly short order, meaning a number of days or weeks, they can begin processing applications after the program has been stood up, because it runs very similar to the Paycheck Protection Program. We've just removed, as Michael indicated earlier, a lot of the parameters associated with the earlier program, making it easier to qualify for a loan.
There has been very little oversight with the original PPP program, Senator Bennet. Does your bill provide more, at least more transparency? As it stands, we still have absolutely no information as far as who received those loans of $150,000 or less. And there's a big lobbying effort to make all of them forgivable without any of those businesses having to prove that they met the PPP standards.
I think, first of all, in our case, as Todd said, the revenue threshold, I think, will be enforced and is different from what they had in PPP, and I think that will make a difference. The use of proceeds also will make a difference too. And then you're right, Stephanie, we have to have transparency on this, and we've passed that in a bipartisan way in the earlier COVID bills. The administration, particularly President Trump, has not been thrilled with that, and he's put up roadblocks in terms of, the Inspector General's ability to be able to do the work they need to do. And this is a moment where Congress is going to have to stand up and do the oversight that's required. I think when you look at a bill like the one Todd and I have proposed, it's very, very rare to see 47 senators support a bill like this, almost equally Republican and Democrat. That's not easy. I've seen it on stuff like postage stamps and commemorative coins. I haven't seen it on something that's hard like this. And every single one of us is going to have a stake in making sure that the bill, that the program is administered properly and that there's the oversight that's required. And that's a good reason, once again, to have bipartisanship rather than just a partisan process that one party owns and the other doesn't.
It's very rare and it's crucially important. So I so appreciate what you both are doing. Senator Young, you're also on the Foreign Relations Committee. Yesterday, we learned that somewhere between $192 to $419 million worth of small business loans flowed to Chinese companies. Will your bill do something to prevent that from happening again?
Our bill explicitly makes eligible only American businesses that operate in America. If there's anything whatsoever we can do to make that language more clear and to ensure that there's no access by Chinese businesses to these monies, then we will tighten the language up. But I think it's pretty clear in our language that we won't have problems.
Senator Bennet, yesterday, 100 CEOs wrote a letter to congressional leadership, to Treasury Secretary Mnuchin, urging them to create a real relief package for small business. They mention your bill in it. Do you believe that letter will have any additional influence on Capitol Hill as you're trying to push this forward?
I really do. I mean, we're very proud of that letter. We're proud to have the support of those 100 CEOs. A lot of them started out as small businesses themselves and are advocating on behalf of the small businesses across this country because they know how important they are to the fabric of our society. And I think both the bipartisan support inside the Capitol and the extraordinary support outside the Capitol, ranging from the 100 CEOs that you saw in that letter yesterday, Stephanie, to Lady Gaga and all of her colleagues in the music industry, I think augurs really well for our ability to get this bill passed and as part of this COVID package.
Then what's standing in its way, Senator Young?
Well, we're making incredible progress. My hope is that in coming days, we can continue to gain more co-sponsors, not just here in the Senate, but also in the House. The White House has been negotiating a lot with Speaker Pelosi and House leadership on this package. I do know that Senator Schumer on the Democratic side has been very involved in those talks. So we're continuing to socialize this legislation. We did receive a big boost with Howard Schultz and the 100 CEOs indicating that they supported this measure. And I believe that something like the Restart Act will ultimately be included in our package, perhaps as soon as this week.
Well, good luck to you both. This thing is crucially important to our country, to our economy, and to American culture. I appreciate it.